The clock on the kitchen wall showed 9:45 p.m. and Maya's feet were screaming. She had been running between tables for 12 straight hours, her second double shift this week. The fancy restaurant where she worked never slowed down, especially on Friday nights when the wealthy crowd came out to spend money like it was water. Maya wiped down another table and sighed. Her white apron was stained with drops of wine and sauce, and her black shoes had lost their shine hours ago. But she couldn't complain. This job paid her bills and helped cover her little brother's medical expenses. That was all that mattered right now. The restaurant was buzzing tonight because of a special party in the private dining room. Some rich businessman was celebrating his birthday, and he had rented out the entire back section. Maya could hear laughter and clinking glasses through the thick wooden doors every time she walked past. "Maya, table 6 needs more bread," called out Tony, the head waiter. He was rushing around just as much as everyone else tonight. She grabbed a basket of fresh rolls from the kitchen and made her way through the crowded dining room. The main restaurant was packed too. Every table was full of people in expensive clothes, talking about their vacation homes and business deals. As she served the bread, Maya caught herself humming quietly. It was something she did without thinking, especially when she was stressed. Tonight, the melody flowing through her mind was from a piano piece she used to know by heart. The notes seemed to calm her racing thoughts. "Excuse me, miss," said the woman at table 6. "Could we get some more of that wonderful wine sauce?" "Of course," Maya replied with a smile. "I'll be right back with that." She headed toward the kitchen, still humming the same tune. It was a complex classical piece full of runs and dramatic pauses. Her fingers moved slightly at her sides as if she was playing invisible keys. Old habits die hard, she thought to herself. The private party was getting louder. Through the doors, she could see glimpses of the celebration. There were probably 30 people in there, all dressed like they had just stepped out of a magazine. The birthday man was clearly enjoying all the attention. His voice carried over everyone else's as he told stories and laughed at his own jokes. Maya had learned not to pay too much attention to the wealthy customers. They lived in a completely different world from hers. While she worried about paying rent and buying groceries, they worried about which country to visit next or which car to buy. But tonight was different. As she passed by the private room again, she noticed something that made her stop. There, in the corner of the room, sat a beautiful black piano. It looked expensive, probably worth more than she made in 2 years. The birthday man was standing next to it, gesturing wildly as he spoke to his guests. "This baby cost me more than most people's cars," he was saying, his voice loud enough for Maya to hear clearly. "It's a genuine piece imported straight from Germany. Only the best for my home." His guests gathered around, clearly impressed. Some of them took pictures with their phones. The piano looked perfect, like it had never been played. "Not a single fingerprint on its shiny surface. Do you actually play it?" asked one of the guests, a woman in a sparkling dress. The birthday man laughed and shook his head. "Not really. I bought it more for decoration, you know? It looks impressive in my living room. Besides, real musical talent is so rare these days. Most people just pretend they can play." Maya felt a strange tightness in her chest. She knew she should keep walking, mind her own business, and get back to work. But something about his words bothered her. The way he talked about the piano like it was just an expensive decoration made her sad. She remembered her own piano back home. It was old and scratched with keys that stuck sometimes. Her parents had bought it used when she was 7 years old, saving money for months to afford it. She had spent countless hours on that bench, learning scales and practicing pieces until her fingers moved like magic across the keys. But that felt like a lifetime ago. Now the piano sat silent in her tiny apartment, covered with a sheet and piled with unpaid bills. She hadn't played in over a year. There was no time for music anymore, only work and worry. "Maya, where's that wine sauce?" Tony's voice snapped her back to reality. "Sorry, coming right now," she said, hurrying toward the kitchen. As she prepared the sauce, Maya could still hear the birthday man talking about his expensive piano. He was now explaining to his guests how much he had spent on it, like the price tag was the most important thing about the instrument. "You know what would be amazing?" said another guest. "Some live music. This party could use some entertainment. Well, unless someone here is secretly a concert pianist." "We're out of luck," the birthday man replied, and everyone laughed. Maya stirred the sauce and tried to focus on her work. But her mind kept wandering back to that beautiful piano, sitting unused in the corner. She wondered what it would sound like, what it would feel like to play something so perfect and well-tuned. She delivered the sauce to table 6 and continued with her duties. But every time she passed by the private room, she found herself looking at that piano. And every time she looked, she felt that old familiar ache in her chest, the one that reminded her of everything she had given up. The birthday man was still holding court, still talking about expensive things he owned. His guests hung on his every word, laughing at his jokes and agreeing with everything he said. They all seemed to live in a world where money could buy anything, including respect and admiration. Maya began clearing another table, listening to the classical piece still playing in her head. Her fingers moved automatically as she stacked the plates, following the rhythm of the music only she could hear. For just a moment, she forgot where she was. She was back at her old piano, lost in the beauty of the melody, feeling the joy that only music could bring. But the sound of breaking glass from the kitchen brought her back to the present. She was a waitress in an expensive restaurant working to survive, while a room full of rich people celebrated next to a piano that would never know the touch of someone who truly loved music. Little did Maya know that in just a few minutes, her quiet humming would change everything. The melody in her head was about to become the key that would unlock a door she thought was closed forever. The birthday man was still talking, still boasting about his possessions. And Maya was still just a waitress, invisible to the wealthy crowd. But sometimes, the most extraordinary moments begin in the most ordinary ways. The stage was set for something neither Maya nor the birthday man could have imagined. Maya was refilling water glasses at a nearby table when she heard the birthday man getting louder. His voice had that edge that comes after a few drinks, and he was clearly enjoying being the center of attention. "I'm telling you, people today have no real skills," he said, waving his champagne glass in the air. "Everyone thinks they're talented at something, but when it comes down to it, they're just fooling themselves." His guests nodded and murmured in agreement. Maya tried to ignore the conversation, but it was impossible. The man was speaking loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "Take music, for example," he continued. "Real musicians are born, not made. You either have it or you don't. And let me tell you, most people definitely don't have it." Maya felt her jaw tighten as she moved to the next table. She had heard this kind of talk before from wealthy customers who thought money made them experts on everything. "That's so true, Richard," said one of his friends, a woman with perfectly styled hair. "I tried piano lessons once. Waste of time and money. Some of us just aren't cut out for it." Richard, the birthday man, laughed and patted his friend on the shoulder. "Exactly. That's why I don't even bother trying to play that piano. Why embarrass myself when I can just enjoy owning a beautiful instrument?" Maya was now clearing the table right next to the private room. She could see everything clearly through the open doorway. Richard was leaning against his expensive piano like it was a piece of furniture, using it to hold his drink. "You know what would be funny?" Richard said suddenly, his eyes lighting up with mischief. "Finding some random person here and asking them to play, just to prove my point about fake talent." His guests giggled nervously. Maya could tell they weren't sure if he was serious or just joking around. "Oh, Richard, you're terrible," laughed another woman. "You can't just embarrass innocent people like that." "Why not?" Richard grinned. "I bet 99% of people would make complete fools of themselves. It would be educational." Maya tried to move away from the doorway, but Richard's voice stopped her cold. "Hey, you there! Waitress!" She turned slowly, hoping he was talking to someone else. But Richard was looking directly at her, pointing with his champagne glass. "Yes, you. Come here for a second." Maya's heart started beating faster. She glanced around, hoping Tony or another waiter would come save her. But everyone was busy with their own tables. I need to serve these other customers," she said politely, gesturing to the dining room. "This will only take a minute," Richard insisted, his grin getting wider. "I heard you humming something earlier. What was that tune?" The entire private room had gone quiet. All 30 guests were now staring at Maya, waiting to see what would happen next. She felt her face getting warm. "I'm sorry, I don't remember," she said quietly. "I hum without thinking sometimes." "Oh, come on," Richard said, taking a step closer. "It sounded classical. Very fancy. You seem to know your way around complicated music." His tone was friendly enough, but Maya could hear something else underneath it. He was setting up some kind of joke, and she was going to be the punchline. "I really should get back to work," Maya said, trying to back away. Wait, Richard said, holding up his hand. "I have an idea. Since you know classical music so well, Why don't you play something for us on my piano? The room filled with uncomfortable laughter. Maya felt like she was trapped under a spotlight. Everyone was looking at her, waiting for her response. I couldn't, she said. That's not my job here. It's my birthday party, Richard said with a shrug. I'm asking you to play. Consider it a special request from a customer. One of his friends tried to intervene. Richard, maybe we should just order dessert instead. But Richard was clearly enjoying himself now. No, this is perfect. She was humming some complex classical piece like she knew what she was doing. I want to see if she can back it up. Maya looked around the room at all the faces staring at her. Some looked curious, others seemed embarrassed by Richard's behavior. But none of them spoke up to stop what was happening. The thing is, Richard continued, his voice getting louder, I bet you've never actually played piano in your life. You probably heard that song on the radio or something and thought it sounded impressive. Now Maya felt anger mixing with her embarrassment. I have played piano, she said quietly. Really? Richard's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. Well then, this should be easy for you. Just play us a little something. He gestured dramatically toward the beautiful black piano in the corner. Don't worry, I won't judge you too harshly when you mess up. We all have dreams that are bigger than our actual abilities. The room was dead silent now. Maya could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She knew she should just walk away, apologize, and get back to her tables. That would be the smart thing to do. But something about Richard's smug expression made her pause. The way he was so confident that she would embarrass herself. The way he talked about the piano like it was just an expensive decoration. The way he assumed that someone like her couldn't possibly have any real talent. If I play something, Maya said slowly, and you think it's good, what happens then? Richard laughed out loud. If you can actually play something impressive on that piano, I'll give you the biggest tip you've ever seen in your life. How's that sound? How big? Maya asked, surprising herself with her boldness. A month's salary, Richard said without hesitation. But when you can't do it, you have to admit in front of everyone here that you were just pretending to know about music. His guests looked shocked. A few of them tried to talk him out of it, but Richard waved them off. Come on, it's my birthday. Let me have some fun. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? She plays Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and we all have a good laugh? Maya stared at the piano. A month's salary would change everything for her. It would pay for her brother's next treatment and give her some breathing room with the bills. But if she failed, she would be humiliated in front of 30 strangers and probably lose her job. I don't know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I think you do know, Richard said, his tone turning slightly mean. I think you know exactly what will happen when you sit down at that piano. You'll realize that humming a tune and actually playing music are two completely different things. He turned to his guests with a theatrical gesture. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to witness the difference between real talent and wishful thinking. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was just the memory of all those hours she had spent practicing on her old piano at home, but suddenly she wasn't scared anymore. Okay, she said, looking Richard straight in the eye. I'll play for you. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Richard's confident grin faltered for just a second before returning full force. Excellent, he said, clapping his hands together. This is going to be very educational for everyone involved. Maya walked slowly toward the piano, her heart pounding but her mind surprisingly clear. She had no idea what she was about to do, but she knew there was no turning back now. Richard's expensive piano waited in the corner, about to reveal secrets that would change everything. Maya's hands were shaking as she walked toward the piano. Every step felt like it took forever, and she could feel 30 pairs of eyes following her every move. The beautiful black instrument seemed to grow larger as she got closer, its polished surface reflecting the soft lighting of the private dining room. Behind her, she could hear Richard whispering to his friends, probably making jokes about what was about to happen. She tried to block out their voices and focus on the piano in front of her. When she reached the bench, Maya paused and took a deep breath. The piano was even more beautiful up close. The keys looked perfect, not a single scratch or mark on them. This was definitely the kind of instrument she had only dreamed of playing. She sat down slowly and adjusted the bench to the right height. Her fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, and suddenly, she was transported back to her childhood. She remembered her first piano teacher, Mrs. Chen, who had taught her that the piano wasn't just an instrument, it was a way to speak without words. "Well?" Richard called out from behind her. "We're waiting." Maya closed her eyes and let her fingers find their position on the keys. For a moment she forgot about Richard and his cruel bet. She forgot about the restaurant, the bills waiting at home, and her brother's medical expenses. All she could think about was the music. She started with something simple, just a few gentle notes to test how the piano sounded. The tone was incredible, rich and warm in a way that made her heart skip. This piano had been built for music, even if its owner had never bothered to learn that. "Is that it?" Richard laughed. "A few random notes? My 5-year-old niece could do better than that." His guest shuffled uncomfortably, but no one told him to stop. Maya opened her eyes and looked down at the keys. She knew what she wanted to play now. It was the piece that had been stuck in her head all evening, the one she had been humming while she worked. It was Chopin's Minute Waltz, but not the way most people played it. Maya had learned a special arrangement that was much more complex, with runs and variations that turned the simple waltz into something extraordinary. She placed her hands on the keys and began. The first few notes were soft and gentle, almost like a whisper. Maya let the melody flow through her fingers, feeling the music come alive under her touch. The piano responded beautifully, each note clear and perfect. Richard's laughter died away. The room became completely quiet, except for the sound of the music. Maya could feel the change in the atmosphere, but she didn't look up. She was lost in the piece now, her fingers dancing across the keys with a grace that came from years of practice. The waltz began to build, becoming faster and more complex. Maya's left hand played a steady rhythm, while her right hand spun out the melody in elaborate patterns. This was the part where most amateur players would stumble, but Maya's fingers moved with perfect precision. She could hear someone gasp softly, but she kept playing. The music was carrying her away from the restaurant, away from her worries, away from everything except the pure joy of making something beautiful. The piece reached its most challenging section, where the melody seemed to tumble over itself in a cascade of notes. Maya's hands flew across the keyboard, hitting every note with perfect timing and expression. This was piano playing at its finest, the kind of skill that took years to develop. Behind her, the room was absolutely silent. Even the sounds from the main restaurant seemed to fade away. Everyone was focused on the music flowing from Maya's fingers, unable to believe what they were hearing. Maya played the dramatic middle section, where the waltz transformed into something almost orchestral in its complexity. Her whole body moved with the music, swaying gently as she navigated the most difficult passages. She had performed this piece in competitions years ago, and muscle memory guided her through every intricate detail. The final section approached, and Maya prepared for the spectacular ending. This was where the piece showed off everything a pianist could do: speed, precision, expression, and pure musical instinct all working together. Her fingers raced through the final cascade of notes, each one crystal clear and perfectly placed. The music built to its climactic moment, then suddenly became soft and gentle again, like the waltz was saying goodbye. Maya played the last few notes with infinite tenderness, letting each one ring out clearly before moving to the next. When she finally lifted her hands from the keys, the silence that followed was deafening. For what felt like an eternity, nobody moved or spoke. Maya sat perfectly still, her hands resting in her lap, afraid to turn around and see the reaction on everyone's faces. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. It was just one person at first, but soon others joined in. The applause grew louder and more enthusiastic until the entire room was clapping and cheering. Maya finally turned around, and what she saw took her breath away. Every single person in the room was standing, giving her a thunderous ovation. Many of them had tears in their eyes. Some were shaking their heads in amazement, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. But it was Richard's face that shocked her the most. The smug confidence was completely gone, replaced by something that looked like awe and embarrassment. His mouth was hanging open slightly, and he seemed unable to speak. "That was incredible," said the woman with the perfectly styled hair, wiping tears from her eyes. "I've never heard anything so beautiful in my life." "Where did you learn to play like that?" asked another guest, still clapping. Maya felt overwhelmed by all the attention. I studied music in college," she said quietly. "Before I started working here." "Studied music?" Richard finally found his voice. "That wasn't just studying music. That was professional level playing. That was concert hall quality. The applause continued and Maya felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment and pride. She had forgotten how good it felt to share music with other people, to see how it could move them and bring them joy. "I can't believe you've been working as a waitress," said another guest, a man in an expensive suit. "You should be performing in concert halls." "Why aren't you?" asked the woman who had been crying. Maya's smile faded a little. "Life got in the way," she said simply. "I had to make some difficult choices." The room fell quiet again, but this time it was a respectful silence. Everyone seemed to understand that there was a story behind her words, a story about dreams deferred and sacrifices made. Richard walked over to the piano, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice serious for the first time all evening. "And I owe you a very large tip." Maya stood up from the piano bench, still feeling dizzy from what had just happened. "You don't have to," she said. "I just wanted to play again." "No, a deal is a deal," Richard said firmly. "You held up your end of the bargain and then some. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life." He paused and looked around the room at his friends, who were all nodding in agreement. "Actually," he continued, "I think we need to talk about a lot more than just a tip. What you just did, that changes things. That changes everything." Maya didn't understand what he meant, but something in his voice told her that her life was about to take another unexpected turn. The piano sat silent behind her, but its music was still echoing in everyone's hearts. The next morning, Maya woke up thinking the whole thing had been a dream. But when she checked her phone, she found 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Her performance at Richard's party had been recorded by several guests, and the videos were spreading across social media faster than she could believe. One video already had over 50,000 views with comments pouring in from people around the world. "This gave me chills," wrote one person. "Real talent hiding in plain sight," said another. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through the comments with growing amazement. People were calling her a genius, a hidden treasure, and asking why she wasn't performing professionally. Her phone rang again. This time she answered it. "Hello, is this Maya Rodriguez?" The voice was professional and excited. "Yes, this is Maya. My name is Jennifer Walsh, and I'm a talent scout for Lincoln Center in New York. I saw the video of your performance last night and I had to call immediately. We need to talk." Maya's heart started racing. Lincoln Center was one of the most famous concert halls in the world. "I think you have the wrong person," Maya said. "I'm just a waitress." "No, I definitely have the right person," Jennifer said firmly. "What you played last night was extraordinary. I've been in this business for 20 years and I know real talent when I see it. Can we meet today?" Before Maya could answer, her call waiting beeped. "Another unknown number." "I'm sorry, I have another call coming in," Maya said, still feeling confused. "Please don't hang up," Jennifer said quickly. "This is important. Real opportunities like this don't come around often." Maya switched to the other call. This time it was a man from a recording studio in Chicago, asking if she would be interested in making an album. Then another call from a music teacher who wanted to offer her a job at a prestigious music school. By noon, Maya's phone had rung so many times she had to turn it off. She couldn't concentrate on anything, and she was supposed to work another double shift at the restaurant that afternoon. When she arrived at work, Tony the headwaiter pulled her aside immediately. "Maya, I don't know what happened last night, but the phone hasn't stopped ringing here either. People want to know if you still work here, when you'll be performing again, if we're going to have live music now." Maya tied her apron around her waist, trying to act normal. "It was just one song, Tony. I'm sure people will forget about it in a few days." But Tony shook his head. "I don't think so. Richard called this morning and specifically requested that you work his table tonight. He's bringing different people this time, says they want to meet you." The lunch shift passed in a blur. Several customers recognized Maya from the videos and asked for pictures with her. She felt awkward and embarrassed by all the attention, but she tried to stay professional. At 3 o'clock, Richard arrived with a small group of well-dressed people. Maya recognized one of them from the news. He was the conductor of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. "Maya," Richard called out when he saw her. "Please come sit with us for a minute." "I'm working," Maya said, glancing around nervously. "I can't just sit down with customers." "I already talked to your manager," Richard said. "It's fine. These people came here specifically to meet you. Reluctantly, Maya sat down at the edge of the table. The conductor, whose name was David Chen, leaned forward with interest. I watched the video of your performance 12 times last night, he said. That arrangement of the Chopin waltz was remarkable. Did you create those variations yourself? Maya nodded. I was experimenting with different interpretations in college. My professor encouraged us to make the classics our own. Which professor? David asked. And where did you study? As Maya answered his questions, she could see the conductor becoming more and more excited. He asked about her training, her influences, and what other pieces she could play. The reason we're here, David finally said, is because the symphony is looking for a soloist for our winter concert series. We need someone who can bring fresh energy to classical music, someone who can connect with audiences in a special way. Maya felt dizzy. You want me to perform with the Chicago Symphony? We want to audition you, David corrected gently. But based on what I saw last night, I'm very confident you have what it takes. Richard spoke up. I also made some calls this morning. I have friends in the music business, and they're all very interested in meeting you. He pulled out his phone and showed Maya a list of names and phone numbers. This is a producer who works with major record labels. This one is a booking agent who handles concert tours. And this is a friend who runs a music foundation that provides grants to promising artists. Maya stared at the list, feeling overwhelmed. I don't understand why this is happening so fast. Because real talent is rare, said another person at the table, a woman Maya hadn't met. I'm Lisa Park and I run a music management company. When something like your video goes viral, it's because people recognize something authentic and special. Lisa opened her laptop and showed Maya the screen. Your video now has over 2 million views. People are sharing it with comments like, "This made me cry and I had to watch it 5 times." That's not normal for a classical music performance. But I'm just a waitress, Maya said again, as if repeating it would make all of this go away. You're a trained classical pianist who happens to work as a waitress, David corrected. There's a big difference, Richard leaned forward. Maya, can I ask you something personal? Why did you stop performing professionally? Maya looked down at her hands. My little brother got sick when I graduated from college. The medical bills were huge and my parents couldn't handle them alone. I needed steady income right away, not the uncertainty of trying to build a music career. The table went quiet. Finally, Lisa spoke up. What if we could solve both problems? What if pursuing music could actually help with those bills? The symphony position pays very well, David added. And if you're interested in recording or touring, those opportunities can be quite lucrative for the right artist. Maya felt like her head was spinning. This all feels too fast. Too good to be true. I understand, Richard said. Yesterday morning, I didn't even know you existed. But sometimes life changes quickly. Sometimes opportunities come when we least expect them. He paused and looked a little embarrassed. I also owe you an apology for how I acted last night. I made assumptions about you that were completely wrong. I judged you based on your job instead of seeing who you really are. We all do that sometimes, Maya said quietly. But that's exactly why what happened last night was so powerful, Lisa said, showing Maya her phone again. People are sharing this video because it reminds them not to underestimate anyone. Your story is inspiring people all over the world. Maya looked around the table at these successful, confident people who all seemed to believe in her more than she believed in herself. Part of her wanted to say yes to everything immediately, but another part of her was terrified of giving up the security she had worked so hard to build. I need time to think about this, she said finally. Of course, David said, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this have a way of disappearing if you wait too long to grab them. As Maya stood up to get back to work, Richard called out to her one more time. Maya, what you did last night changed my perspective on a lot of things. I hope you'll let it change your life too. Walking back to the kitchen, Maya felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at a completely different future. The question was whether she was brave enough to jump. 3 weeks later, Maya stood backstage at the Chicago Symphony Hall, wearing a beautiful black dress that Lisa had helped her pick out. Her hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from excitement. The decision hadn't been easy. After that meeting with Richard and the symphony conductor, Maya had gone home and cried for 2 hours straight. She was terrified of leaving her steady job, scared of failing in front of the whole world, and worried about letting down her family. But then her little brother Alex had called. "Maya, I saw your video," he said, his voice weak but excited. "You looked so happy when you were playing. I haven't seen you look that happy in years. But Alex, if I leave the restaurant job, what happens if the music thing doesn't work out? How will we pay for your treatments?" Alex was quiet for a moment. "Sister, you've been taking care of me and everyone else for so long. Maybe it's time to take care of your dreams too." That conversation had changed everything. The next day, Maya called David Chen and agreed to audition for the symphony. A week later, she got the job. Now, as she listened to the orchestra warming up on the other side of the curtain, Maya thought about everything that had happened since that night at Richard's party. The video of her performance had reached over 10 million views. News stations had picked up her story, calling it the waitress who shocked the world and hidden talent discovered in Chicago restaurant. Maya had done interviews, photo shoots, and even appeared on a morning talk show. But the best part wasn't the fame. It was what had happened because of it. Lisa had helped Maya start a nonprofit organization called Hidden Notes. The mission was simple: find talented musicians who were working other jobs to survive and help them get back to making music professionally. "There are probably thousands of people like you out there," Lisa had explained. "Incredible musicians who had to give up their dreams for practical reasons. We want to help them find their way back." Within 2 weeks, Hidden Notes had received over 500 applications from musicians around the country. Former music students who were now driving trucks, teaching elementary school, or working in offices. All of them had stories similar to Maya's. Richard had become the organization's biggest supporter. "I was completely wrong about talent being rare," he admitted during one of their planning meetings. "Talent is everywhere. Opportunity is what's rare." He had donated enough money to fund the first year of the program, and convinced several of his wealthy friends to contribute as well. "I spent my whole life collecting expensive things," he said. "Now I want to invest in expensive dreams." Tonight's concert was special for another reason. It wasn't just Maya's professional debut with the symphony. It was also a fundraiser for Hidden Notes, with all the proceeds going to help other hidden musicians. Maya peeked through the curtain and saw the packed auditorium. Every seat was filled, and there were people standing in the back. She spotted Richard in the front row, along with Tony from the restaurant, and several of her former co-workers who had gotten the night off to come watch. But the person she was most excited to see was Alex. Her little brother was sitting in a wheelchair in the special accessibility section wearing his best suit. His treatments were going well, and the doctors were optimistic about his recovery. The money from Maya's new career was helping, but more importantly, seeing his sister pursue her dreams had given Alex hope for his own future. 5 minutes. "Maya," called the stage manager. Maya took a deep breath and walked to the piano that had been placed center stage. It wasn't as fancy as Richard's piano, but it was perfectly tuned and ready for music. David Chen, the conductor, found her at the piano bench. "How are you feeling?" he asked kindly. "Nervous," Maya admitted, "but good nervous." "Ready nervous," David smiled. "That's the best kind. Remember, you've already proven you can do this. Tonight is just about sharing your gift with more people." The lights dimmed, and Maya heard the audience settle into silence. This was it. The moment that would officially mark her return to the world of professional music. She walked out onto the stage, and the applause was thunderous. People were standing before she had even played a note. Maya waved shyly and sat down at the piano. The piece she had chosen for tonight was special. It was the same Chopin waltz she had played at Richard's party, but she had written an entirely new arrangement for full orchestra. The symphony would play with her, turning her solo moment into something even more beautiful. Maya placed her hands on the keys and nodded to David. The orchestra began with a soft, gentle introduction that made the familiar melody sound like something completely new. When Maya joined in, her piano seemed to dance with the other instruments. The music filled the huge concert hall, reaching every corner and touching every heart. This wasn't just a performance. It was a celebration of second chances and dreams that refused to die. As Maya played, she thought about her journey from that tired waitress humming while she worked to this moment on stage with one of the country's finest orchestras. Every struggle had been worth it. Every sacrifice had led to this. The audience was completely captivated. Some people were crying. Others were leaning forward in their seats as if they wanted to get closer to the music. Maya could see phones recording the performance, but she didn't mind. She hoped this video would go viral too, inspiring other hidden musicians to believe in themselves. The piece built to its dramatic finale, with the full orchestra joining Maya in a spectacular conclusion that brought everyone to their feet. The applause went on for nearly 5 minutes, with people shouting "Bravo!" and "Encore!" But Maya wasn't done yet. She had one more surprise planned. As the applause died down, Maya stepped to the microphone at the edge of the stage. "Thank you all so much," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "6 months ago, I was working as a waitress and my piano was covered with dust at home. I thought my music career was over forever." The audience listened intently. But sometimes life gives you unexpected chances, and sometimes those chances come from the most unlikely places. She looked directly at Richard, who was wiping tears from his eyes. "Tonight, I want to announce that Hidden Notes has already helped 12 musicians return to professional careers. We've provided grants, connected people with opportunities, and reminded talented artists that it's never too late to chase your dreams." The audience erupted in applause again. "But most importantly," Maya continued, "I want to thank everyone who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. And I want to tell anyone listening who has a hidden talent, a forgotten dream, or a skill they think the world doesn't need. You're wrong. The world needs your gifts. We all need your gifts." She returned to the piano for her encore, a simple, beautiful piece that her first piano teacher had taught her years ago. It was a reminder of where her journey had started and how far she had come. As the final notes faded away, Maya knew that her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a waitress who could play piano. She was a professional musician who had learned that dreams deferred are not dreams denied. The standing ovation seemed to go on forever, but Maya didn't mind. She had all the time in the world now. Time to make music, time to help others, and time to prove that talent and determination could overcome any obstacle. Richard had been right about one thing. Real talent was rare. But Maya had learned something even more important. Real talent combined with real opportunity could change not just one life, but hundreds of lives. The curtain fell, but Maya's new story was just beginning.